YouTube, hello, welcome back to another new players guide for WoW in 2020. I'm DANIMAL, and if you guys have watched the previous videos already, you know what it's all about a little bit. The next 3 episodes are going to be dedicated to the roles within doing dungeons, and a little bit on actual dungeons itself. So as always, if you're enjoying the content, please leave a like, any comments, any subscriptions, anything that you'd like to do on the YouTube channel to support it, I would greatly appreciate. Let's roll that music. Okay guys, here we go. So, in the background, I've got some footage rolling off of my level 62 DK running in Utgard Keep. So this is going to keep you entertained while I just explain a little bit more about dungeoning and what tanking actually consists of. So, what is tanking? We need to find out what tanking is, but before that we need to know what dungeoning is. So, dungeons are an integral part of World of Warcraft. You'll be doing dungeons when you've hit max level. You'll be doing dungeons throughout your leveling experience if you choose to do so, but you will never ever stop doing them. They will always be, like I said, an integral part to your experience on World of Warcraft. So even at max level, you know, you have the ability to do high level dungeons to get better gear. Now gear is what we want to make our character perform better and be stronger, and you know, like any MMO player and any MMO or RPG experienced player, you will know that the better items that you get, the stronger you become and the more powerful you feel, and then you have obviously a good playing experience because of that. So dungeons are run in a 5-man party. In that 5-man party there are 3 roles split between them. There'll be 1 tank and 1 healer and 3 damage dealers, or DPS as we're going to keep calling them from now on because that's the lingo we use in WoW. Now the other 2 I will do and cover into 2 separate videos after this. But on this one I want to focus specifically on tanking because I think tanking is such an important role to not have a bad experience on, because it can completely knock your confidence. And I think tanking is possibly the most daunting role because you kind of have an element of leading, and if you're doing it for the first time you might think that you are leading blind. So without further ado, let's understand how tanking works, and I'm going to switch over to my warrior, so I'll be right back. Okay guys, welcome back. So I'm on my level 30, let's just check actually, 31 warrior. Tank right now, a Spectrum tank, just so that we can go through this. So I want to talk a little bit of what our main goals are with tanking. Now I'll just give a brief overview and then we'll go through it quickly. So the overall idea of what we need to do with tanking is, as you may have saw from the footage just before, is you need to be the one who gets in first, picks up all the mobs and the monsters onto you, and generate what's called threat to keep them attacking you, and to keep all of the damage away from the damage dealers and the healer, as well as keeping yourself alive by mitigating damage using your abilities to do so. And then obviously it's like, because you're the first one in, that's why I said you need to lead, because you need to be able to push forward and be the first one in. So I think the first thing to kind of brush over is threat gain. So threat gain. I've got a couple of, so basically I've come out in the Zero Tower here, just outside Orgrimmar. To kind of, I just want to kind of just use these mobs. So I think it'd be quite easy to like just sort of show you with a couple of mobs in front of me, rather than like doing the actual dungeon, because I don't want to pause during the dungeons to actually like explain things. I don't have a 5-man party that can say, guys, I'm just recording a video, can you just hold a second? So you've got to be quite active when you're in the dungeon, because you're tanking, you're setting the pace, right? But saying that, obviously keep your own pace and what you're comfortable with. So threat generation. So I'm a warrior. Because I chose warrior, by the way, because the kit is probably the most all-rounded at this level. You've got 2 big so warriors work off of rage, right? The more rage you build, it opens up other damaging abilities. And for example, the hero, we have the shield block as well, which is a mitigating ability. So you generate rage with these two abilities here. You've got your shield slam, which does a lot of damage, but it's on a cooldown, so you can only use it every 7.8 seconds there. And devastate, which is the main normal attack, which will build up the rage so that you can use things like your revenge, right? So revenge, shield slam, and devastate, these are all single target. I believe that's a single target. Oh no, that's a AoE ability actually. Now it used to be a single target ability, but it's an AoE ability. So when I say AoE ability, I mean area of effect. That's a bit of lingo that I think we need to start picking up a bit more, because you'll hear AoE all the time. So there is two types of threat I suppose you can go for: single target threat and AoE threat. So if there's just one mob like this, I'm gonna just run in, like, get to him. So my auto attacks will always build a bit of threat. Tanks in general will build threat just by attacking. They will build more threat than a normal DPS or healer when they're doing damage. But when you attack, you're going to build threat. But you want to be generating more than that amount of threat. So let's get this guy over here. Let's bring him over. So I'll use my devastate. I'll use my shield slam. You can see it does a lot of damage. So you obviously want to be a damage dealer as well. But these abilities are building up rage, so I can build up more threat. But these abilities here will be using what's called single target threat because I'm doing it on one enemy. Whereas then you've got the ability to have AoE threat, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to body pull these guys to show you. So if we've got a larger pack, say of these 4 people here, and I've got this rare spawn here too, so it's probably quite a good thing. All the people around might be like trying to do their AoE damage, and they attacking all these guys, and you're thinking, well, if I'm doing single target threat, I'm not going to keep hold of these. So you want to bang at your AoE threat. So I use that thunderclap to do that. I use my revenge, so that hits all enemies too, and then they are all sticking onto me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, because this rare spawns here, I actually might have to survive this somehow by killing him like that. But I'll get my victory rush, and I should be able to keep alive. So that's another ability that you've got there. Just kill him, get a victory rush. Another victory rush there, should keep alive. But as you see, this is a good example of keeping yourself alive as well. So there you go, you see I held, like, if I had a friend with me and he was doing AoE damage around these guys and attacking them all at the same time with his AoE abilities, I would have kept threat on all of them because I would have been using Thunderclap and my revenge to keep hold of them. So that's how you deal with the packs there, like that. If you're on a boss, more nowadays you can use these AoE attacks on them. I mean, you can just pretty much use all your attacks, but you want to focus your single target ones first, rather than the thunderclap. So if I was in a group, I would use the thunderclap first, and then I would use some other abilities to get my revenge and use that, and focus on my AoE abilities. And then when I'm on a boss, I would actually focus on my hard single target abilities. For example, this one, before I use my AoE abilities, because I want him to have a lot of threat on me straight away, because usually if it's like a boss, then the DPS are going to be using their hardest hitting abilities on their single target attacks, right? So the idea of this, on the whole there, is to generate what's called threat to get the mobs to attack you. Now, I think the next thing to kind of touch on after that is pulling those mobs. So we've got to make sure that we get them together and we want to pull them. So there's types of pulling. Obviously, like a warrior here, you can jump in like this, or I've got a leap where I can jump over here and get this guy. So if I wanted to pull these two guys here, I could pull them together. Now you notice this guy's a ranged guy here, right? I pulled this mob over to the other guy because I know he was going to sit there and cast things, and because I was away from him, I couldn't use my pummel, which is my interrupt, so you can interrupt spell casting. I didn't want to use that on him, just so I could use the example to get back to him and bring this mob over and then stick them together. Now, pulling ranged mobs, maybe you're in a high level dungeon, you don't want to, let's say there's this crocodile over here. I'm going to mark him up actually. Say there's a crocodile over here with the cross on it, and then we've got this guy who we want to kill here. But you don't want to pull this pack because let's say there's about 6 other mobs with him and he's got 3 mobs with him. We want to just have this pack, kill that one, then move on to kill that guy. We can do what's a ranged pull. So warriors have an ability here called heroic throw. We can throw that at him, and look, he's going to come to us. He's coming quite slowly. I think, does that have a slow on it? I don't know. And then we can dispatch of this group, and then we would move on. And then there's this group here, and so there was another group there. We could just be like, oh, okay, I'll range pull this guy, and he'll come over. So that's 2 different. So you've got your engagement pulls and your melee pulls, and you've got your range pulls. Also, you may have noticed from playing WoW now that you can body pull, so they aggro to you just by seeing you, like any MMO or whatever you might play, or any game that you get close to an enemy and they want to attack you because they're aggressive. You might also be thinking, but what if that guy there is a strong mob and then we've got a couple of other packs here, we don't want to pull them, and we attack this guy and he's a ranged one with a bow or something where he doesn't want to hit me, he's going to stand there and hit me, and I'm going to be waiting going, oh no, he's just hitting me and I don't want to get close, so I don't want to pull these guys. You can do what's called a line of sight pull or a loss pull. So I know this guy's not a ranged mob, but we're gonna pretend anyway. So imagine we were in a dungeon here and this was a wall of a dungeon. I might find an example actually and put it up there just after this to play in between. But when you've got this guy here and you've got like a wall or a doorway, you can actually pull the guy. I'm going to try and do this here. Let's just pretend he was the snake. We pull him and then we get behind this wall here, and then they'll stop casting and they'll actually run round to the door, and then they'll find you in this bit. For some reason he's taking the route over the top. That's pretty funny. Pathing in the wild is a little bit different to what pathing in dungeons would be, but if that was a dungeon and this was like a corridor, you could pull them around the corner by doing what's called a line of sight pull, and everything will come and be nice and clumped up for you to keep bashing out your AoE abilities. Which brings me to the next point, grouping. So, as you may have noticed, when I attacked all the guys over here, I grouped all those guys together and I pulled them into a nice tight little circle. So what you want to kind of do with that is assess maybe the ranged characters you've got in the group and target that one and then pull everything in towards him. But what grouping allows you to gain control of the situation a bit more, because effectively you are in control. You're like the bouncer and you need to get, or let's say you're the primary school year 1 teacher and you need to get all the kids into one space so you can keep an eye on them all and make sure that they're all listening and doing what they want to do. That's kind of what you've got to do. You want to get all the kids together so you can see them, there's nothing going on behind your back, and that you've got control over the situation, that you're glaring down on them, right? There is other reasons for grouping, keeping them in front of you, but I'll go through that in a minute. But also another primary reason why you want to be grouping them up like that is so that your damage dealers some damage dealers only have a small radius for their AoE attacks, which means if they're all grouped together, they can use that more effectively. So it's using playing to your group's strengths and using their abilities better. Because if everything's spread all over the place and you've got like a monk, for example, which has a conal punch move called Fists of Fury, it does like damage in front of him in like a small radius. So if he's got everything grouped up in one go, the monk can boom, 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 and punch all of them. But if there's one behind him or one over there in Africa chilling out, he can't hit that one, and he's going, oh no, I've missed out on doing the damage on that guy. And overall, everyone's missed out on doing damage on all of the party together, the party of mobs, because they were all over the place and doing whatever. So grouping is really, really important. So the next point I'm going to make with grouping as well is it's good for mitigation. Now, mitigation. This is the most important, along with threat generation, for your tanking. So like I said, the idea of tanking is that you want to keep everything attacking you, but you want to survive as well and make it as easy as possible for your group and your healer to stay alive, and for you to stay alive, and everyone has a great experience, and hurrah, you've completed the dungeon, you've got yourself some good loot, you are loving life to the fullest in your WoW experience. Mitigation. So I'm going to come over here just in case something starts attacking me so I can have a look in there, because I'm aware that the mobs are spawning over everywhere. So, mitigation. There's 3 types of passive mitigation: dodge, parry, block. And then you have armor, which is your damage reduction. I suppose you could say that's damage mitigation. The higher armor you have, the more damage you mitigate, because the less damage you take. So the higher your armor, the less damage you're going to take physically. Dodge. So you can dodge attacks on a chance. As you see, I've got 3% chance on my warrior currently to dodge. I've got nothing which adds to my dodge right now. In fact, at the moment, there is not really any stats in WoW that increase that too much. There is an off stat that can randomly happen on the gear called avoidance, which will help with that. But as it stands, I have a 3% chance to dodge. an enemy when it attacks me with a melee attack. Parry, which is very much the same thing. When I am being attacked by the mobs hitting, I have a chance to parry them. And it's really, really worth to note that the other reason for grouping is being able to keep all the mobs in front of you, because unlike dodge, you can't parry from behind. You can dodge from behind because you're like friggin' Neo, but you can't parry from behind because you don't. If you think about it in real life, if you're parrying stuff, you're not really gonna like be going and getting your sword and riposting backwards like this. Whoa, yeah, I'm gonna parry you, baby. You got that in front of you, whereas you can do a little dodge from behind. I mean, sorry for the roleplay, but anyone who watches the stream that I do knows my roleplay, right? And then thirdly, you have, not on all characters, but characters that have shields have block. Now, block is basically another damage reduction, and that's the kind of advantage of shield wearing tanks, is they have this block ability, whereas maybe like Death Knights and Druids will have more dodge. Druids will have more dodge because Druids can't parry because they don't use weapons. So Druids have a lot of dodge, so they're very dodgy. Druids are dodgy bears. Whereas Death Knights can't block because they use a two-handed weapon to tank. So they can't block, but they can parry and dodge. So that's something that we can work out later on down the line. But just to keep in mind that these armor, dodge, parry, and block are all passive mitigation, and just as you get better gear, they will go up. So like I said, they're passive, so you don't have to worry too much about them. But the only thing you need to worry about is if you can parry, Druids aside, keep the mobs in front of you so that when they melee attack, you have a chance to parry, and if they're behind you, you can't do that. And that's something that I really want to drill home. I think that's something that doesn't really get mentioned that often in guides and stuff. So that's like, if you're going to take anything from this video, that's something that's very, very smart about it. And then obviously every class has its passive mitigation, its active mitigation, sorry. So the warrior right now that I'm playing, the active mitigation that I have, the one ability that I have. So, I mean, you can count some of the moves like slow the movement speed and stuff. I guess that could be counted as active mitigation, but the solid active mitigation skill that this warrior has is shield block. So it raises your shield, blocking all melee attacks against you for 6 seconds. Increases your shield slam damage by 30% while active. So actually you get a damage and threat boost by doing that. So it increases it, so you block all melee attacks against you for 6 seconds, right? That's going to reduce the damage you're taking dramatically. So if I get this old Jimmy here, I think I can see how much is he hitting me for. So 26 at the moment, that guy. If I use my shield block, there you go. Did you see that? 26 block, and it blocks the damage. That will stop you taking damage, and this is what you need to do: gain the threat, block the damage, deal out the damage to keep gaining threat, rinse and repeat, while keeping control of the situation, keeping your grouping good, because that's good practice to do. And you know, leads me on to my next point with awareness. You can really keep control of the situation and keep aware. So let's talk about it. Awareness. As a tank, now we've discussed the kind of primary things that you need to be looking for. Like I said, the positioning of the mobs and the grouping, your threat, your damage blocking, and different ways to pull, which is, this also counts in the awareness, is you've got to be aware of what's in front of you so you know how safe it is to go ahead. Awareness kind of works wonders if you have it as a tank. Now, what you want to be doing is you want to be keeping control of the situation, and I keep mentioning this. You want to be making sure you're looking at everything that's going on. Say like your hunter comes along and pulls like that. Oh no, there's a patrolling mob just came from behind and started attacking the hunter, and it's gone automatically onto the healer because the healer's healing and he gains the aggro from the healing, right? He will then be like panicking, going, oh, I'm taking loads of damage. You have to be aware. If you see that happening, you can use your moves like, I've got intercept here, get him. Or I could have used my, let's do this. Could have used my throw to pull him over. Or there is another ability called taunt. Now every tank has this. Taunt is a ranged... I mean, Taunt... I'm going to go through it. This Taunt is called Taunt because it was a taunt on a warrior, and this comes from the classic days. So they're all called taunts, even though they have different names. And you'll find this with WoW, that there'll be like a lot of names of things that are different, but they would have been named after the original ability that did that in like back in vanilla and classic WoW. Taunt makes the enemy attack you no matter what. It can only be used on one enemy and it has 8-second cooldown. That's usually standard for all tanks. Now, like more advanced down the line, Taunt will be used a bit more importantly in like raiding and stuff like that. But you can always taunt that mob that's coming towards your healer and it will run straight to you and be like, hey, why? It's like you just go, someone's coming after your mate and you go, oh, you dick, fight me instead. And he comes along and goes, all right, I will. Yeah? So, taunt is very important in that aspect. You can taunt the enemy. I'll show you how it works right now. So I'm like standing here, I can taunt him. Look, you see he gets a little, oh, and he's got the taunt part there. That means he wanted my bacon then. Yeah, so if you have the awareness for that, and you see perhaps like someone's pulled another pack of mobs, if you can react quickly and have that awareness, you can grab them all and clump them up and group them and gain all the threat and then protect yourself. And that's how tanking kind of, you know, how good tanks excel and good tanks work, because it separates the good tanks from the bad tanks, I suppose, is having that awareness to see what's going on, assess the situation, and make sure you're making the right calls. Another example of awareness, and this is something else that has to be really seen, is when you're in a group, you know you have your resource of rage or whatever you have, or perhaps you're watching this as like a priest or something like that, and you know you use mana, and that if you run out of mana, you can't do anything, right? If you keep on your party bars, when I'll have to show you another time, but on your party bars you'll have, if you keep the bars of the healer's mana on there for you, and you can see that, keep an eye on that, and as long as you see he's got enough mana, you can keep pulling, right? And that's going to lead me on to my final point, is confidence. Have confidence in tanking and you will excel. Don't let anything bad put you off. I know that playing this game can be very difficult, especially because it's 15 to nearly 16 years old now. A lot of people have played this, and a lot of people, quote unquote, have played it for so long that they are masters of the game, and they will always tell you that they know better. And there's one thing that older players get really shitty about, and it's they don't like, you know, they think they're better than everyone else, so they'll go ahead and just pull as a DPS and it gets chaotic. And then they'll be like, oh, the tank's rubbish. Ignore that. Have confidence, learn your craft. Don't even listen to them. If someone's being a dick, just ignore them, or you know, whatever. Don't just don't rise to it. If someone thinks they're like real cool, like a mage is running ahead and he's pulling everything and he's almost dying and he starts blaming you, it's not your fault that he's a twat, right? And I just want to hammer that home. Have confidence and stick at it. Don't worry about it. The other part of confidence I want to say is, once you learn this a bit more and you get a bit happier and you're comfortable and you're looking at the healer's mana, you know your abilities, you've got everything on like kind of a rotation, you've got your swagger on, speed it up. Be confident. You don't need to always take your time. You can go, right, I feel like I can pull the next pack. And then say I'm fighting this toad. It's a bit of a weird one. And I want to go fight this snake and the toad's nearly dead. And I think, right, my DPS are going to finish that off. I can go, right, I'm going to go fight the snake now. Pull the next pack. While they're finishing off that pack while it's running towards me, I'm there building threat on the next one. Then they start attacking it. I think, oh, I can move on to the next one. Healer's mana's good. Let's keep it flowing. And that kind of confidence is something that you build over the time of tanking. I think that's all I need to say on tanking right now. If you have any questions, always feel free to stick them in the comments. Always feel free to come over to my stream. I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, 8 PM GMT. And I'll be so happy to do whatever you guys want. At the moment, I'm currently leveling every single class just because I'm bored waiting for Shadowlands. I'm not really interested in doing any more of the BFA stuff at the moment, so I'm kind of just chilling and having fun. But I think it's quite good at the moment when new players are coming into my stream and asking questions, that I can go, right, well, if you want to see some tanking, I'll jump onto my warrior next and we'll do a dungeon on tanking, and then I can kind of explain what I'm doing. I find things very easy when I'm doing them live. I'm not the best at doing the YouTube videos. So yeah, that's it, guys. Just if you follow those steps, you can master tanking and even take that on into Shadowlands and take it on further into your career in WoW, and you can start doing the big boy Mythic Plus dungeons and stuff, which we will get to one point, but next we're going to cover over healing and that. Last thing I want to touch on is resourcing. If you want to look up any resources and stuff, I will put links down in the descriptions to two websites that will probably be most helpful right now, Icy Veins and Wowhead. I'll throw a little clip up on the screen now. Icy Veins and Wowhead are both really good resources for learning your classes, getting a bit more of an in-depth insight into the talents, into the different specs, and kind of help you learn on the way to what perhaps would be preferred to your playstyle. And if you're just sort of like looking for quick snap, like, oh, I don't know what decision to make with my talents, what should I do? If you don't want to explore that yourself, they have plenty of resources on there to help with everything to do with that. So guys, thank you so much. Thanks for all the love on the previous videos. If you haven't watched them already, please go give them a watch now if you find this interesting, and I will see you in the next one where we'll have some glorious healing. Take care.